Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Shri Saraswatye Namaha. Om Shri Gurudevaya Namaha. Hari Om. Very special Hari Om to all our friends in Ghana and different places around the world. This is our second lecture today, and the topic which was given to me is called the Evolution of Brahman. A very interesting topic, and interesting because in Vedanta, Brahman does not evolve. Brahman is Kalatita, Nirvikara, Achintyam, so many, is it beyond time, doesn't change, it is unthinkable, it is beyond all modifications, like that. So, if we say the evolution of Brahman, then that doesn't make any sense, because Brahman cannot evolve since it doesn't change. It is a karta, it is a non-doer, and all such things, you see. So, from that standpoint, that question seems not to make any sense. But I think that topic seems to make no sense. But it is very interestingly, it makes all sense also. Because given that Brahman, or the absolute reality, the substratum of the universe, is akarta, doesn't do, is nirvikar, it doesn't change, and all such things, still we all witness before us a changing universe, and so some explanation or account for this universe will have to be given. So the question will be then, from whence did the universe evolve, or from where did the universe come? Who is responsible for the universe? How is it here? If Brahman is a non-doer, akarta, then that means he is not a creator. He did not create the universe. So, when we start thinking like this, we realize that this topic is of great relevance, and therefore today I want to deal with a number of issues and often asked questions that will come up around this topic. First thing is, we have to account for this universe which is existing, which seems to be finite to us, means made up of finite things, universe which is changing, which is all the time in flux, and how is it related to that absolute reality, and how did it come about, and all of that. So now let me just explore with you a few of the possibilities, and we'll see where the rishis stood on these possibilities, where the Vedas stood on these possibilities. One is that this universe was created by the Supreme. Okay, so this creation theory was rejected by the rishis a very long time ago. I'll just tell you why. There are too many questions that we'll not be able to answer if we accept the creation theory. Of course, if you don't have questions and then you're just a strict believer, then the creation theory might be very easy to accept. If your intellect is not one of the questioning type, then creation theory is easy to accept. But once you start asking questions, once you exercise your intellectual capacity, your intellectual privilege, then you start asking questions. And one question leads to another, and on, and then you will not be able to have answers to all of those questions. And then you might have to submit to some sort of defeatist kind of acceptance that, okay, God doesn't want me to know all of these things. So he did not put it within the ken of my intellect, or some such thing. Anyway, so now let us just analyze the creation theory a little bit. So there is the absolute reality, and there is this universe, and the universe came about because the absolute created this universe. And this is the creation theory. So then one question you will not be able to answer is, why? See, it means to say at one time he alone was there, and then suddenly, for some reason, and this is where the problem comes, for some reason, he created the universe. Okay? So if you try to posit the reasons why he would have done, then none of it will suffice. Or maybe suddenly he got a bout of exuberance or something. Then you will have to ask why he did not get it before. So suddenly he got a creative urge. So why it was not there before? If he's been there eternally, suddenly got a creative urge, you see? So you will not be able to answer the why. Or if you say maybe he was lonely, so until that time he was not lonely. He was alone and he wanted to see, or he wanted to test his power. Oh, so he doesn't know his power. So things like that, all of it sounds absurd. Any reason you posit as to why, but then you will have to, again, like I said, end up with saying something like, oh, he doesn't want you to know why. So that means he holds the secrets from you also. All sorts of things. So if you have to answer why he created the universe, you cannot come up with any proper answer. Okay, theek hai. If you say, okay, I cannot answer why he created the universe, and with that why, there are many, many other things you cannot answer. For example, if he created the universe, why he created evil? Because the universe has good and evil. You know that the universe is made up of both positive and negative. So he made a universe with saints and sages and crooks and criminals and murderers on the other side. So that type of universe he designed. Why he designed it like that? So you go on finding answers. And he made the universe with evil, and the evil affects us, and then we only now go back to pray to him to free us from that evil, or to save us from the evil. Because you know what religion is. Everywhere, all across the world, everybody is involved in some sort of wooing or bribing God to save them from evil. This is what it has turned out to be, isn't it? To save them from pain, sorrow, which is on the negative side. So you will never find suitable answers for any of these questions as to why he did this and why he did that and all that. There is no answer. So that cannot be resolved. If you ask when he created the universe, well, we are in bigger problem. Because when means at some time he created, means prior to that there was no universe. Then at some time he created the universe. But that is where the problem is. Time is part of the universe. An act of creation must happen at a particular point in time. Like, for example, this watch was not there at a particular time, and then at a point in time it was created. Okay? So all act of creation must happen at a particular point in time. Now, if you say God created the world at this time, it means time had to be pre-existing. And we find that time is part of the world. So there is now a conflict there. Inconsistency. Time is part of the world, but God created the world at this time. Right? So we said, no, okay, hold up. First he created time. Then he created the world. So then we ask, at what time did he create time? Because you're saying first, that means a prior point in time. Prior to this, he created time. So there's still prior. Posterior and prior, then you are introducing time. So you get yourself into a whole sort of contradictory things. So at what time did he create the world? So now see, why, when, then next big question now. How? How he created the world? So out of what? Because remember, he is alone there. He's alone there. There's nothing. So we say he created some material. He created some material. And out of that material, then he made the world. Okay. Alright. So that material he made will come from where? Because there's no second thing. That material will be him only. So then, when we go into this, that material will be him. He himself, did he transform into those material? Did he transform himself into those material? That means he's changing. If he transformed himself into those material, he's changing. He's a changing being. And if he's a changing being, then he's like you and I. We are changing every day. And then, but suddenly one day we are dead. Right? All changing things expire. You see, this is a rule about change. All changing things expire. Which changing thing doesn't expire? So God is changing, he's getting older and older. Maybe one day dead. I wonder who will do his last rites. Because he alone is there. So, this type of thing, how, out of what did he create the world? It's a big question. So many things you'll not be able to answer, you see. So rishis rejected this whole idea of creation long ago. We're talking about thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago. Rejected creation theory. If one is a neophyte in all of these spiritual things and the intellect is not fully developed, it is like a child. When a child asks why does it rain, if you say all the scientific reasons why it rains, the child doesn't understand any of that. But if you say that there's an elephant in the sky living in a king's palace and that elephant, sprays water like this, the child will quickly believe because it is a fanciful thing. And that is the only thing that can be entertained by the intellect of a child. Something fanciful. So the child will believe. If you tell him the truth, he will not believe about science and, energy and precipitation and this and that. No, he will not believe any of that. So the creation theory is exactly like that thing. The intellect is developed and it has broken its bounds of conditioning, then it starts becoming free and starts thinking higher things, and realize this whole creation theory it doesn't hold water. Okay, now in Vedanta itself, in the Vedas, there are several possibilities which are posited. And all of the possibilities are rejected. But then if you reject all of them, you will have to eventually supply an answer. You see? So what is rejected? What is called as parinamavada, that God himself changed into this world. He modified and changed into the world. And that we saw just now why it is rejected. Because we see that the world is changing. The world is finite, means it is made up of finite things. So God has become finite things and he has changed, and changing things expire, because that is a rule of changing things. So that is rejected, called parinama vad. we don't accept. Then the Srishtivad, which I just told you, so he created, he made. He himself did not change into the world, but he made. And then there are so many questions which you cannot answer with regard to that. So those things are all being rejected. What exactly is accepted in the Upanishadic tradition, in the Vedas? What is accepted? Now listen to this very wonderful verse. I'll just tell you a verse from the Drigdrishya Vivek, and it is here we will do our exploration and our reflection to try to understand exactly the explanation behind the universe. Very, very famous verse, and one that deserves a lot of reflection. It says there, Srishtir Nama Brahma Rupe Sachidananda Vastuni Abdhau Phenadivat Sarva Nama Rupa Prasarana. What Bhagavan Shankaracharya is saying in this verse is that he is giving the exact Vedic explanation for the existence of a seeming finite changing universe upon an infinite unchanging reality. He's giving the explanation in the Vedic tradition. And what is this explanation? It has nothing to do with creation or parinama. Srishti or parinama means God creating a world or God himself changing into the world and all of that. No such thing. First, you see his example is Srishtir Nama. He says, what is this Srishti? What is this visible, manifested universe before us? If that is the question, he says, Abdhau Phenadivat Sarva. Please pay attention to this. Abdhau means in the ocean, in water, in the waters of the ocean. What we see, Phenadi, means bubbles and waves and froth and so all such things that you see on the ocean. Okay. What we see there, it is the ocean which is nothing but H2O. How many elements are there? It is a big body of water. There is nothing but H2O. There is no second thing. Any part of that ocean is like this pot. There is no second thing. There is only clay. In the very same way, the ocean is only H2O. Please study this first. Abdhau Phenadivat Sarva. The ocean is only water, H2O, but do we not see many other things? Yes, we see waves and bubbles and froth and high tide and low tide, swell, and those happen. We see tsunami. We see so many things in ocean. But if you touch any wave or any bubble or anything, but the only thing that you are touching there is H2O. So here is a very, very important thing, and the point which is to be taken is this. After all is said and done with the ocean, after all that happens with the ocean, really in the final analysis, the only thing that is there is water and nothing else. Second thing, see. It is a most wonderful example of change with no change. What is the meaning of change with no change? It means that you see the ocean changing all the time, isn't it? High tide, low tide, those people who live in Ghana, the ocean, the cities are near the ocean, so you see the ocean all the time. So, you see, you go to the ocean, you look, there's constant change. But in spite of the constant change in the one element which you call as water, in spite of that constant change, really, the change has no effect or impact on the one substance upon which the change seems to exist. So all the change seemed to exist on the water, but in the end, like I told you, in the end, all of the water remains exactly same. Suppose you had in that ocean 5 trillion cubic yards of water, cubic meters of water, 5 trillion cubic meters of water. After all the change that the ocean goes through, in the end, how much water you will have? Same amount. First thing. Second thing, after all the change has happened, the formula for water, which is H2O, would it be different? No. So, after all of that change, the wetness of water, does it increase or decrease? Nothing happens to it. It remains exactly as it was before. So it is a very, very interesting phenomena that here we have a very clear example in the verse of Bhagavan Shankaracharya, Abdhav Phena Divat Sarva, that just like in the ocean, all the waves and all the things which are happening seem to be bringing about change in that fundamental substance. Really speaking, in the final analysis, there is absolutely no change which has happened. And do you know that truism about the ocean is something which ripples throughout the entire universe? Before this pot was made, this was a clump of clay, okay? So let us say it is saline clay, a little bit salty clay, and it was in a clump. Now we take the clump and we put it on a spinning wheel, and we go on spinning like that, and we shape it into this pot. So we end up with this clay pot. Now, the clay seems to have undergone a transformation. It seems to have undergone a transformation. But really speaking, the qualities of the clay and the composition of the clay and the nature of the clay and everything about the clay has remained the same or not. If it was 1 pound of clay before, it is still 1 pound. If it was saline, it will still be saline. If it was orange color, it will still remain orange color. So the clay really remains exactly the same, though, and this is where the second part of the last line of that verse is, Nama Rupa Prasarana. What has happened is the clay has taken on a different name and form. Before you were calling it clump. So now the name has changed. What are you calling it now? Pot. Before it had the shape or rupa of a clump. Now it has the shape or rupa, form of a pot. Clump to pot. So name and shape has changed. Nama Rupa, name and form, they have changed, but the fundamental substance, which is clay, that remains exactly same. That doesn't change. So the idea which is given about the ocean and all the manifested changes, all the various changes which we witness, that idea is to be applied to all things in the universe. That same truism ripples throughout the universe. You may not have thought about it. I'll just give you a simple example, which is a very funny example, which is far-fetched, not far-fetched, it is a real example, but people don't think about it. It's an outlandish example, and it is designed like that to tickle the intellect so that you will start thinking also. See, look here. Scientists say that this body is made up of about 70 or 80% water. Okay. Well, when this body dies, it is taken there to the cremation site, which is very close here, and it is cremated. Then where does the water go? Because when you put this basically thing made up of water, when you put it in fire, where does the water go? Well, the water goes up into the sky. Okay. It forms clouds, falls down as rain, and then we collect the rainwater in some form and we drink. So every day we are drinking previous generations. Correct or not? So what is really happening? It is 80% water. It means that the water is just taking on, now it has taken on this form. It has taken on your form. Name and form. So you are called such and such name and you have such and such form. Big guy, small guy, fat guy, thin guy, whoever. That's form. And you're called the biggie or smallie or tallie or shorty or whatever. Right? So name and form. But it's only water has taken on that name and form. And in the other 20%, which is made up of all the calcium and phosphorus and all the other things, they go back into the soil and they go up into your corn plant or wheat plant, and then again you eat previous generations also. Then, so it is same elements which are again coming back in different bodies and different forms with different names. So that truism runs throughout the whole universe. And then what is being, in the case of the water, which is taking on name and forms, what is taking on the names and forms of this universe? Well, it is the same reality. But please remember, it is the reality which has a seeming change at the superficial level, but which fundamentally does not change in any way. So the clay has to have, seems to have taken on change. It seems to have changed, but it did not change. The nama rupa, name and form, make it appear to have changed. But really, it doesn't change. Even fundamentally, it doesn't change. So in the same absolute reality, Brahman seems to have taken on all the names and forms of this universe, but really it doesn't change. Now that is different from Parinamavada, where God changes into the universe, like milk changes into curd. That is an irreversible change. It's called Parinama. Or it is different from God sitting somewhere and creating the universe. Here, what is this idea of the Upanishad entails? It is, there is a universe which is appearing name and form within God, which appearance doesn't do anything to the fundamental reality, which is Brahman. Like we said, the name and form doesn't do anything to clay. Clay remains the same, all its qualities. So we have this vast universe, and see, whatever qualities will be there in Brahman will have to be there in universe also. What this universe is infinite or not. Who can point out the end of the universe? You try. You may learn this thing or learn that thing from science, and science always makes statements as though they are absolute truth. But they themselves go on changing the statements every 10 years. So, can you find the limits of this universe? It ends, there's an edge over there, border. You will go, suppose you say, no, yes, we find the border, we found the end, the edge of the universe. Now we'll go out, and you go out where? Into a vacuum. A vacuum is a thing that is existing or not? If it's existing as a vacuum, it's still part of the universe. So the qualities that we find in the absolute reality will have to be found in the universe also. So the absolute reality is infinite, and everything in the universe is also infinite. You may see finitude. Look here. You may see this as a finite thing, but this participates in infinitude just like every other thing in the universe. I'll show you how. See, it appears to be finite to you, but what is it made up of? Atoms. Oh. If it is made up of atoms, you say, I take one atom from this, right? Just take one, it's made up of so many atoms. I take one atom. What do you do? You cut that atom in half, throw half, keep half only. Now you have half of an atom. You cut that in half, throw half. Now what you have? Quarter. You cut that in half, throw it half. What you have now? 8. An eighth. You cut this 8 in half, throw out half. What you have? 1/16. Then 132, 164. And you keep going. Now, how, theoretically, how far that can go? You studied mathematics in school, you know. It goes infinitely, isn't it? So, just one atom from this goes on infinitely. But everything in the universe like this is participating in infinitude, you know. So the qualities of the reality, which the reality of Brahman, is infinite. The first thing. So now everything in the universe also participates in that infinitude. Then another thing, that reality is eternal. Reality is eternal. Therefore, this universe in the Vedic tradition is described as Anadi Ananta. It is also eternal, no beginning, no end. Therefore, in this very simple statement, the rishis rejected this creationist theory. It was created at a certain time. No, it was always there. If the reality has always been there, then this universe also has always been there, either in a manifest form which you are seeing before you now, which is called as Srishti, or an unmanifest form which is called as Pralay. And this Srishti and Pralay, it just means the manifestation of the universe and the demanifestation of the universe, something which you see every day in front of your eyes. A certain yesterday I was seeing in one of the news items, what was that? That many species that were thought to be extinct, now they are coming back because of efforts from different people, conservationists and, you know, environmentalists and different people who care about the world and all. So species, they are breeding species in zoos and different protected areas and habitat, and they are bringing back these species. So the species seem to have gone into unmanifest 10, 20 years ago. But now it is again manifesting. So what the Upanishads teach is manifestation and demanifestation. Now please see this. This is a very, very important thing. Manifestation means that the thing is present before our senses now. Demanifestation means not that it has gone out of existence. It has just gone into a form which is not perceivable by our senses. That is all. That is the manifestation. Like a mango tree going into the mango seed. So you have the seed here. That tree has died, but you have a mango tree inside the seed. That mango tree inside the seed is called as an unmanifest mango tree. Because if you open that seed, you cannot see a tree. But tree is there or not? Well, it has to be there, because when you put it in the ground, it becomes manifest. So how it can become manifest if it was not there? So it is there, but it is called as avyakta in Sanskrit. The word is, in Bhagavad Gita, avyaktat vyakta sarva, Bhagavan says in the 9th chapter. From the avyakta, with the unmanifest, all things become manifest. And again go back, unmanifest, like that. So it's a whole process of manifestation and demanifestation which is going on in the universe. Like, for example, in the ocean, at some times you will see it calm, so there is no wave. The wave has become unmanifest. But the potential of a wave forming in that ocean, that is still there. So there is still an unmanifest wave, and at certain times of the day when the sun becomes hot enough, it becomes manifest, isn't it? It doesn't go away. So the universe like this is described in the Vedanta. It is eternal because it has the quality of Brahman. Brahman is eternal. So in other words, when Brahman created the universe, there's no such thing. The when. First, there's no creation. Second thing is, there's no when. Eternity is the name of the game, or the rule here. Now, see, this is where the whole big problem of intellectualization or the intellectual application happens. The human being, Bhagavan describes in Bhagavad Gita, that the intellect can be of three types. Tamasic, Rajasic, or Sattvic. That intellect that is tamasic is lazy, lethargic, sleepy, in a slumber. That intellect doesn't want to think. So if you tell, and that is many times incapable of thinking also. So if you tell the person, well, God was there and sitting, where he was sitting or what he was doing, that also we don't know. But he was there, let us say. And then suddenly, alakazam, boom, he created the universe, right? Whatever idea came into his head, he created the universe. You tell somebody, wow, amazing. His mind gets, blown away by some such thing. Oh, I never knew. I was always wondering where it came from. So God created. No, beyond that, he doesn't have to think anything. So the intellect, now resting in its very comfortable zone of laziness, he accepts, yeah. Who he told me. So I accept. But we don't know the motive of that fellow also, who told. But I accept. So, I keep that, and that requires no more further thinking. All it requires now, what is belief? Belief. What faith? All it requires is faith. That is why religion depends on faith so much. I have to have faith in what that fellow is telling. That is true. And done. So, faith actually is a tamasic thing. If faith is not used, our Puja Gurudev used to say a very important thing. See this, faith is the belief in what I do not know, so that I may come to know what I believe in. The idea is, it requires a very important second step. I have faith, which is a tamasic thing, really. I have faith first. It's a belief that the intellect accepts this. There is no proof or nothing. But the intellect must engage itself in the second stage, and that is an effort to know what I believe in. And there is where it goes into the Rajasic and then Sattvic mode. Otherwise it remains. Blind faith is tamasic. It remains there. And I don't engage in the second step of endeavoring to know. So, the idea is, I believe in what I do not know, so that I may come to know what I believe in. See? So the effort has to be put, self-effort has to be put thereafter to come to know, which requires sattva in the mind. So, Bhagavan describes this sattvic, rajasic, tamasic intellect, and here is where the rishis now push us, prod us, prompt us, move ahead and apply the intellectual might. So now, we apply, and you say, oh, yes, this doesn't sound logical to me, that, oh, God was sitting there and just suddenly some idea came in his mind. Why didn't come before, and why this idea was positive and negative? Because he's infinite power. He could do a million things. And why? You'll have to answer 1,000 questions which you cannot answer. You see? So anyway, now, that reality has the entire universe existing in it, in manifest or unmanifest form. It keeps coming and manifesting, demanifesting, manifesting, demanifesting. And how long it has been there? Well, I told you, the universe takes on the qualities which are present in that reality. The reality is eternal. So the universe also is eternal. And the Vedas does not describe this universe as starting at any time. It is anadi and it is also ananta. It goes on. Now, another question will have to be answered in all of this. So, the universe is capable of manifesting in that reality. Yes, that is the way the reality exists. How? Well, very nicely, Bhagavan Shankaracharya and the Vedas have introduced a nice word which is called Maya, by the reality's own intrinsic power. Maya is the reality's own intrinsic power. Now, I'll show you when we say power, what we mean by that, right? Please see this again. Huh? This clay, which has gone into making this pot, this clay was a clump prior to making the pot, right? It was this much clay, a clump of clay, prior to making the pot. Okay, right? It means this clay was existing as a clump, now it is existing as pot. So, Nama Rupa, name and form here, clump, name and form here, pot, right? Now, the clump which was there had only one possibility in it or many more possibilities. Think, huh? I could have taken the clump and made a dog. Correct or not? I could have taken the clump of clay and made a horse. I could have taken the clump of clay and made a patty. With the clump of clay had inherently in it several possibilities, correct? The clump of clay had several possibilities. It means the nama rupa, names and forms, which the clump of clay could have taken is many. But only one thing, the clump of clay could not have taken on infinite possibilities, or could not have taken on infinite nama rupa, names and forms. I have the clump here, let us just say. Take this clump of clay and make out of it a thought. Because thought is also nama rupa, name and form. So while you can make physical objects with the clump of clay, you can make a horse or a dog or a patty or whatever, right? You can make physical. In other words, the clump of clay has inherently in it many possibilities, but not infinite possibilities. Take the clump of clay and make a memory. Take the clump of clay and make sadness. What? How do you take clump of clay and fashion it into sadness? You can't. In other words, the clump of clay has a finite number of possibilities. That is the idea. And there are many things in the world which will have only finite number of possibilities. Some will have less, some will have more. That is all. You see? Now, the reality in which this whole universe is existing, that reality has how many? Because it is infinite. So the number of possibilities of nama rupa existing in that infinite reality will be how much? Well, it will be infinite. The reality can take on infinite nama rupa, names and forms. It can go on and on and on. Names and forms undreamt of by all of us. It will go on and on and on. It has taken on all nama rupa, names and forms of you and me and all the objects around us and all the unimaginable things in this universe it can take on. Those infinite number of inherent possibilities, that those possibilities intrinsic to that reality, infinite in number, is what we call its inherent power. That thing is given the name of Maya. The infinite number of intrinsic possibilities inherent in that reality, that is called as Maya. It is his intrinsic power. It is like the ocean. How many waves can the ocean make? Oh, Bapre. The ocean is lying there without waves. How many possible waves can spring up in that ocean? Well, that can go on and on, isn't it? Big waves, small waves, countless in number. And all of them are intrinsically present in the ocean. So here also, the intrinsic power, that power which is inherent in that reality, is given the name of Maya. Now please see, when the ocean rises into a wave, nothing happens to H2O. H2O remains same. When the absolute reality rises into a planet or rises into a parallel universe or anything, nothing happens to that reality. There is no change in the fundamental substance which makes up that reality. So it's way different from creation and parinama, means srishti and parinama and all. This is called as Vivartavada. Technical names are given in Sanskrit. Vivartanama. So when Bhagavan Shankaracharya is explaining now, describing this whole visible universe, or the whole manifested universe before us, it says Srishtir Nama. What you call as Srishti, what we call as Srishti, or creation, because creation is the word which is used in the English language. The implication of that word is way different in Vedanta and in the Vedic tradition. It just means what we call as the manifested universe before us, Srishtir Nama, Brahma Rupe, in the absolute reality, Brahman, Brahma Rupe. In that reality, Satchidananda Vastuni, in that reality which is of the nature of Satchidananda, consciousness, existence, consciousness, bliss. In that reality, just like waves arising in the ocean, we have all the names and forms of this universe arising. And please now see one further step. Nama Rupa Prasarana, a very, very important thing. Nama Rupa Prasarana line, phrase. Do you know, when we say that there is a name pot, so that is number one. Count how many things are here. Name, P-O-T, pot. Number two, Rupa. There is a Nama, Rupa, number two. Form, because this form is different from this form. They are two different forms. This is a pot form, this is a watch form, right? So the form, this particular shape, meaning. So one is name pot, second is shape of pot. That is two. And third thing, clay. Number three, clay. Oh. So we say that Nama Rupa, 1 and 2, and clay, that makes it a list of 3. Really speaking, Nama Rupa, name and form, they are mere unreal appearances. And that is why we call the world as Vivarta. It is just a manifestation of a name and a form on a reality which does nothing to the reality. Abhasa Rupa in Sanskrit it is called. It's a mere appearance on the reality which really does nothing to the reality. Out of these 3 things, there is really only one thing. Name, form, clay. 3 things. There is only one thing really. Please see that. How? Easy way to prove it to yourself. How many things? 3. Okay. We take one molecule of clay and we keep it here. Second molecule, keep it there. Third molecule, keep it there. Fourth, and we go on removing all the molecules of clay and keep it over there. Please remember, I am not removing name and form. What am I removing? Only clay. After you have removed all the molecules of clay from here and put it aside, what will remain? What has happened to the other 2 things in your list? You were saying that there are 3 things here. name, form, and clay. Out of these three things, I removed one. The other two disappear. That means what? If they had any reality, any independent reality, they should have persisted after I removed the one thing. But when I remove that one thing, clay, they disappear. That means they have no independent existence. A thing that does not have an independent existence does not exist. It appears to exist. It's called as abhasa. It's an appearance. So the universe is nothing but the appearance of name and form on a fundamental reality. That is what the universe is. It is the appearance of name and form on an independent reality. It is only the reality that is independent. The names and forms are appearances. An appearance like what? Like a snake on a rope. When a snake appears on a rope, upon the discovery of the rope, what happens to the snake? Snake disappears, isn't it? In the very same way, and this is the rationale for mukti, moksha, enlightenment, realization, whatever you want to call it, freedom. The idea is, if we are able to follow through with the disciplines laid down, which last week I told you about, Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam, prior to that, Sadhana Chatushtaya. Last week I told all about this thing. If we are able to follow this discipline, because this is a program which is laid out. When you go to university to get a degree, there's a program laid out. If you want to get that degree, you have to follow the program. You cannot go on. You tell the university, okay, I will make my program. You can't. There is a program which is laid out there. You have to follow the program, and then you get the degree. Otherwise, in degrees, you are thrown out. So, here also, there's sadhana chatushtaya, samadhi shatka sampatti included in there. Then there's shravanam, mananam, nididhyasanam and all. We follow this program. Then, we come to discover the reality which is behind the phenomenal universe, which is just a mere appearance of names and forms. Then this body, mind, intellect will also be part of that name and form, correct or not? But it is not excluded. The body, mind, intellect is also part of this whole appearing universe of name and form. Just like now when we discover the rope, which is really the fundamental reality there, and snake is an abhasa, means an appearance on the rope. The only way the snake will go away is if we come to fully ascertain the existence of rope. If we do not fully cognize rope, snake will remain on that rope, isn't it? In the very same way also, when we come to fully cognize the reality, realize the reality which is at this level of the substratum of the universe, because rope is at the level of substratum of the snake. When we come to realize the reality which is at the substratum level, then the nama rupa, and in this case is one difference from rope and snake. But here, the universe doesn't disappear. The universe remains there. But then I know that there is only nama, rupa, there's only names and forms. Like just now, in the example which I was giving you here, the name and form, name pot, form pot, they don't disappear. But we come to know that they are non-existing appearances, or they are mere appearances. You come to know that because the only real thing which is here is clay. The other two don't have any independent existence. So I told you something which doesn't have an independent existence, but is seen. It doesn't have an independent existence, but it is seen. Here, the Nama Rupa of pot is seen. We have a name for that also in Sanskrit. It's called as Mithya. It is Mithya. It is experienced, perceived, but we know that it doesn't have any real existence. It is just appearing. And the snake is seen, but we know the snake doesn't have a real existence. It is an appearance. In the very same way, when we come to discover the substratum of this universe, then what happens? The names and forms remain, but we know that they are not real. The names and forms are mere appearances. This is the idea, and this is called as enlightenment. Then what will happen? I will come to discover the substratum of this body, mind, intellect also, this BMI. And the substratum of this BMI is also that absolute reality. But the discovery of the absolute reality need not necessarily send away the appearance. So, what happens is illusion remains, but delusion goes. Well, what does it mean of illusion? Delusion goes. Moha goes, delusion, but abhasa remains. Right now, I take myself to be this body, mind, and intellect. I think I am this BMI. That is called as delusion. That's called moha. So what happens is that thing goes away, because now I realize I am not this body, mind, intellect. I am the substratum upon which the nama rupa of body, mind, intellect is appearing. So that delusion goes away, moha goes away. The illusion of body, mind, intellect, and illusion of all the other things in the universe, that remains. And it is like this now. If you walk into this door here, there's a door right on my left side here. If you walk into this door and you see a spider on this wall, there's a wall on my right side. You cannot see all of that. So you walk through this door and you see a spider on this wall here, right? And you're scared of spiders. Well, suddenly you will jump like that, isn't it? Now, suppose you find out after a moment that this is just a projection by these tech people who are sitting here to scare you. Well, they have cameras and all sorts of different things here, so they just projected this spider on this wall. I mean, they have projectors also. So they projected a spider on that wall to scare you, because they know that you will be walking through this door in a few minutes, and they keep that spider ready for you there. Okay. So when you see the spider, you jump. Then suddenly you see everybody laugh. And then you watch and you look closely, and then you see, oh, it is only a projection of a spider. Now, prior to that, when you were thinking it is a real spider, you were scared. But now you, after a careful analysis and observation and all, you realize that it is not a real spider. It is a projected spider. It's just they are projected on the wall there. Now, you don't mind. You will go and touch it also, isn't it? That means it will not scare you. That's my point. It will not scare you. You can even go touch it if you like. So, the projection doesn't go away. It remains. But now, your understanding of that projection has changed. I understand it in a different way. Prior to that, I was understanding it to be a real spider. Now I realize it is not a real spider, it is just a projection of a spider. In the very same way, upon the realization of what myself is, I am that absolute reality, by all the Mahavakyas and all the disciplines I explained last week. You go through the discipline and realize, I am the fundamental reality. The projection of this world, the appearance of the world, that doesn't go away. But now I understand it differently. And so, whatever used to torment me before and all of that sort of thing, that thing is not there. anymore. Or even the torment is not real. It is an appearance. You see? So, upon realization, the delusion of what was real and what was unreal, what is true and untrue and all that, that goes away. That delusion goes away. The illusion doesn't go away. Illusion means the appearance of Nama, Rupa. I told you, Nama Rupa has to be an illusion. Why? Because though you are seeing it, there's name and form, there's only one thing. That is called an illusion. Which is something which appears to be there, but really is not there. That is illusion. So it is the reality with its inherent infinite number of possibilities which appears as this universe. But when we say appear, we mean to say, strictly speaking, appear only. Means an appearance is something which just presents itself but is not real. That is an appearance. It presents itself but is not real. So this is the whole idea of the universe, how it is related to Brahman or the absolute reality. Now, is there a process by which that happens? And I think this is part of the topic, the evolution of Brahman. Well, there is a process which is given in the Taittiriya Upanishad and given in different places and all. There is a process that absolute reality manifests as this universe by a process, correct? From the absolute reality, conditioned by its own Maya power, it appears as space, and from space comes out air, then fire, water, and earth. In all of this, space, air, fire, water, earth. From space comes fire. Akashat, Vayu. Vayu, Agni. Agni, Apa. Apa, Prithvi. Like that. First evolves or manifests space, and from space manifests air, and from air manifests fire, and from fire water, and from water earth. There's a process of manifestation. The manifestation just doesn't happen. And don't think this is a chronological thing. This is where the problem comes. We are all taught to think chronologically. This is, when we say, and process also, when we introduce the word process, then it introduces chronology. And that chronology is what gives the intellect some trouble, intellectual trouble. Let me just give you. So there are threads in this piece of cloth, right? Threads make up the piece of cloth. At some point, the manufacturers introduce orange dye, okay? Orange dye. So there is a dependence of the dye on the cloth. Because if there is no cloth, there will be no place for the dye to rest. No threads, there will be no place for the dye to rest. Correct? Okay. So there is a dependence on one thing on the other. There is a dependence of the dye on the cloth. So, and in that dependence relationship, one has to precede the other. The cloth has to be pre-existing before the dye can be added, correct? Yes. Now, because we experience a universe like that, what? There has to be the pre-existing of one thing, and then there is the second thing which is added on, because the second thing depends on the first thing. Because we experience a universe like that, we think that that is the way also Brahman and this universe exists. At one time, Brahman was not there, and then at the second, at one time the universe was not there, only Brahman, and then later on the universe appeared on Brahman. What you have to say is, yes, there is, and this is the teaching now of the Upanishads, there is a dependence of dye on cloth, but it is not a chronological dependence. It is an eternal dependence. It has always been like that. It is not that one day the cloth was made and then the second day the dye was superimposed on the cloth. Then you are introducing chronology, which happens in ordinary life. But in case of Brahman and the universe, it is not that One day Brahman alone was there, and then suddenly the next day universe appeared on Brahman. There is a dependency of the universe, the manifested universe, on Brahman, but it is not a chronological dependence. Please make this very subtle point difference in the mind. It is not a chronological dependence that one day Brahman alone was there and then the universe was superimposed on Brahman and all that kind of thing. Brahman has always been there. It is like this. Wetness is dependent on water. The water has wetness as its quality. So then you can tell, when did water start being wet? Well, yes. Wetness is dependent on water. If there is no water, there is no such thing as wetness. Wetness is dependent on the water. But the water did not start becoming wet at certain time. Its nature is like that. So it is in the nature of the absolute reality to have a manifested universe appearing on it. And when did it start? No time. So when we introduce process of space, air, fire, water, earth, and all of that sort of thing, right? We cannot engage in such a language without evoking or invoking the idea of chronology and time, and this one first and this one second, and this came from that and that came. It is as though space has air in it already, and just that the air manifests from the space, and the air has fire in it, and as the fire manifests, and this thing did not happen at a certain point in time and all of that sort of thing. This is its very nature. It is the nature of space to contain air and nature of air to contain fire and water. And in other words, we have to really break the mind free from the shackles of chronology, because the reality is beyond time. So in the process of analysis and thinking, chronology will have to be transcended. That is the idea. Eh? Time will have to be transcended in this whole thinking process. All right. So yes, when I'm introducing now process, I'm introducing process from the Upanishads in a very ordinary way. So we say, yes, first the reality was there, tasmat akasha sambhutaha. From that reality came akasha, akashat vayu, vayu ragni, like that. So from the reality came space, from space air, from air fire, from fire water, from water earth. And these 5 elements now we're introducing chronology, and we're introducing whole process and all of that. Huh? This is from a very ordinary standpoint. You will have to think further and minus the chronology from all of it at some later point in your thinking process. So now, what happens? The 5 of them go through a process of the 5 elements, we call them now: space, air, fire, water, earth. The 5 of them go through a process called as Panchi Karana. So now this will become the evolution of Brahman, if that is what the topic meant. The evolution of Brahman evolves as space, then air, fire, water, earth down the road. They go through a process of Panchi Karana. The 5 of them split and they intermix. Prior to their splitting and intermixing, they are not visible. But when they split and intermix, you know how that splitting and intermixing is done. So you put 5 of them here: space, air, fire, water, earth. Right? Like this. There are 5 housewives. And 5 of them make 5 different cakes. So one makes chocolate cake, one makes vanilla cake, one makes sponge cake, one makes ripple cake, and one makes cheesecake, like that. Huh? All of them make 5 their own type of cake. So the one who makes chocolate cake, she will be wondering, I wonder what those other cakes taste like, you know. And the one who makes cheesecake over here will be wondering, I wonder what those other cakes taste like. So they come upon a nice, very wonderful agreement and arrangement. What is that? Each of them cut their cake into half. And they take half and they hide it in their cupboard for future consumption. Then only half is left of all of their cake now, isn't it? So this half which is left, they cut it into 4 pieces. And they give 1 piece to each of the other 4. And the housewife who made chocolate cake, that half which is left, she'll cut it into 4 pieces and she'll give to the other 4. Now she'll be left with nothing here. But they also do the same thing. So she will receive 4 pieces from the others also. So she will again end up with half. But the half mixed of the other 4. And then she has a half of her chocolate. So she has predominantly chocolate, but here a half made up of the other 4. So it is called as Panchikarana, means the splitting and recombination. Panchikarana Panch Mahabhuta. What you will have now is here, first one, she'll have half chocolate and the other half made up of the other 4, but predominantly chocolate, you see. In the very same way, space, air, fire, water, earth, now you do the same thing. So you'll have predominantly space, but mixed with air, fire, water, and earth. Now the 5 elements become visible and available for the manifestation of tangible things. So this thing is made up of 5 elements: space, air, fire, water, and earth. And all things in the universe is made up of 5 elements. All the Nama Rupa is made up of the 5 elements. They can only become manifest, visible, perceivable, when the space, air, fire, water, and earth has undergone this process. Now, what a subtle process to have been discovered by the rishis and related to us. This whole thing is beyond the ken of our senses. It's apaurushaya. We only know this from Shastras. Your mind is not subtle enough to be capable of seeing this in the universe. So, the Shastras, Rishis relate to us in this way. And we have before us a process. Process, would you please pay attention? We have a process. And this is how the reality evolves. How the reality evolves into this universe, manifests as this universe. Okay, so this is the evolution of Brahman. All objects made up of these 5 elements. Now you would have seen in very ordinary terms, when in Hinduism, when there is a funeral, this body, mind, intellect, which is made up of these 5 elements, you would have seen when one dies, then there is a whole big ceremony, which is called the last rites, Anteshti Sanskar, where this body is sent through a process, a symbolic process of sending back the 5 elements which makes up this body. Sending back the 5 elements, back to the 5 elements from which they came. And that is very much significant, because not only this body, but all things in this universe is made up of these 5 elements. Really speaking, if the first one, space, emanates or evolves from Brahman, and from space came air, fire, water, down like this, right? Then where does everything come from? In the final analysis, everything comes from the reality only. So it is the reality which is appearing as the universe in the final analysis. And just to go back to our beginning teaching in the beginning, what is that? The reality appearing. And please remember, an appearance is not a modification of the reality. An appearance is nothing more than an appearance. Nama Rupa Prasadana. It's just an appearance of name and form, an appearance which does nothing to alter or modify the fundamental reality upon which the appearance is experience. Okay. All right. So this is with regard to the evolution of Brahman. Now, there are some questions which I will try to answer. Let's see. How does one become a fit student for Vedanta? Last week I gave some indications about this thing. One has to personally take a resolve. And that's why I keep stressing in Hinduism, vrata, oaths and vows and all of such things, they are very, very important. So even if you don't know about Vedanta, you will not know about Vedanta. Sanskar, which are given in the family, is so very important, because in the families, when you have a puja, you have to take a vrat. When there is the Ekadashi, we take vrat. When there are so many occasions, when my birthday is coming up, I take vrat. So all the occasions in a family, in family life, all these sanskars are given. You have to take vows and oaths, and that carries over into a person taking a vow. Look, I'm going to abstain from all the unnecessary, all the worldly things which ordinary people just engage in. Eat, drink, be merry, party, take drugs, whatever people do. You know what people do, right? Go on. So I have to take a vow. Even simple thing like speech. I keep telling everywhere. There are people in the world who cannot talk without cursing. So I take a vow. I am not going to use these type of words. I am not going to be eating this type of food. I am not going to be engaging in that type of activity. All these are different personal vows. Those type of self-discipline, those things will bring great benefit, and the benefit will be this. When I take good resolve like that, those good resolve lead me on the right path. Suddenly I get exposed to some person who will inspire me, some teacher, some mentor, this, that. They inspire me, and I get inspired along the path like that when I keep engaging in those type of things, until eventually I will find the right teacher. He'll walk into my life. I don't have to worry. I have to take the initial steps though. He'll walk into my life. So it all hinges on my personal commitment to make sure that I do the right things. And you don't have to be a scholar to know what is right things. I told you, in the family itself, the values are taught. Suppose in your family the values were not there, proper values were not there, then you look around and see how one evil causes so many other things. And therefore, I will not engage in that evil like that. Are the qualifications of a student a prerequisite for beginning the study of Vedanta, or can it be developed during study? Well, there is no, see, logically speaking, if I say I develop all the qualities, then I will become a student, that is not possible. Then you will spend your whole life only developing all the qualities, then you will never become a Vedanta student. So yes, we develop sufficient enough qualities to study Vedanta, and as we go along, there are many more things we'll have to drop, and many more new things we'll have to pick up. So this is a whole process. It's not that suddenly I develop qualities, and then there's a point down the road there when somebody will have to tell, okay, this is enough qualities, now you know. The two go hand in hand. We develop qualities and we study Vedanta, and we develop more qualities and study Vedanta. It goes like that. Why is sadhana, chatushtaya, necessary for moksha or liberation? It is like preparing, it's a very simple thing. Even in an ordinary household situation, you will see. If you are going to make roti or dosa or something, so we put the tawa. What is English for tawa? You put a iron pan on the fire. Okay. So when you put the iron pan on the fire, you just don't go and take your dosa mix and you put it there, or you take your roti and you put it there. You have to wait. The iron pan has to be heated up, right? When it is heat, and that's all the right temperature also. So you have to know that. There is always a preparation for doing everything in this world. Every single thing in the world requires preparation. Before you can go to university, you have to prepare from kindergarten all the way to high school, isn't it? How they'll take you in university just like that, or what? They'll not do. You have to prepare yourself for all the things that you're going to encounter in university. Well, sadhana chatushtaya is the same sort of preparation. Moksha will not happen. Some people say, no, Swamiji, there's so many saints and sages, Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharishi, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, Swami Vivekananda, they did not do any preparation or anything. Suddenly they became enlightened and all that. Who told they did not do any preparation? But you did not see any preparation. But this is a jiva coming from life to life, one after the next, and so many lifetimes of preparation. What you saw was the result only. You did not see all the preparation. So it is absolutely necessary. How does one develop a desire, longing for truth? Well, this is a very interesting question. Actually, a jiva really develops this desire for truth or reality or Brahman or liberation. This is all called one same thing. By dukkha. A person who doesn't have sorrows in life, he will not develop any desire for liberation. When I have had enough of the sorrows, enough of the torment, enough of the disappointment, enough of the heartbreak, enough of the misery and all the anguish and pain, when I have had enough of it and I realize that all the quick fixes or the temporary solutions will not do, that person starts looking for the permanent solution, and that is called as liberation. So it hinges all on dukkha, sorrow. So the next time we have some sorrow in life, we should be thankful that the sorrow will drive me to pursuit of liberation. How can thoughtless awareness be practiced? How can thoughtless awareness be practiced? Okay, so thoughts actually make up the mind. This is first thing. The mind is just a bundle of constant thought. And why does the mind go into all of these thoughts? Because the mind has a lot of attachments. The mind has a lot of attachments. It's attached to this, means likes and dislikes. It runs away from this and runs towards this. It is likes here and dislikes here. Runs away, runs here. It's likes and dislikes. And those likes and dislikes cause attachment here. I am attached to this. I can't do without it and all. Why? Now there's one deeper thing. What is there? I think that this thing has happiness. It gives me happiness. So I run after it. So now, understanding that happiness does not inhere in that thing. Happiness is my very own nature. When I am able to do that for a very long time, convince myself that happiness is in me, it is not in this object, this thing, this place, person, place, animal, thing, whatever. It is in me. When I understand that and I'm able to reflect, contemplate and meditate on that for a long time, then the mind will not go there or go anywhere. The mind will stay home in Om. If the mind is staying home, then that mind will not have the thought of this thing or that thing or the other thing. That thoughtless awareness will be experienced. The mind not thinking, because the mind has long been convinced that happiness is not there. Because I told you last week, all we are looking for is happiness, or the relinquishing of sorrow, evading sorrow. So when it is convinced it is here, it will not be thinking, okay, let me go there, I will get some happiness. Let me go there, let me do that. No. It has to be convinced by clear thought and all for a long time, not just like that. So thoughtless awareness to be practiced means requires all this pre-thinking, pre-analysis, pre-understanding. This will not happen just like that. Okay. All right. So now we will end here. Let me say a very special thank you to all the organizers who are listening in from various places, and I hope that these lectures are bringing some bit of clarity to your thinking process and your endeavor to reach the higher reality, to realize the higher reality. Reach is a very wrong word. To realize the higher reality, which is our very own self. A very special thank you to all the organizers and to all the people who are engaged in the technical work to bring these lectures to fruition. Okay. Hari Om, and we'll see next Sunday. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.